so excited to introduce you guys to Amber. Amber is our first speaker for the day. She is a graduate of Southern Poly. For those of you in Atlanta, that's now Kennesaw State University. She founded her own company, Aspire Construction and Real Estate, just a little over 4 years ago. She's a licensed general contractor. She's also on the board of Black Women in Construction, and she also founded her own nonprofit, Aspire for Hire, which actually is dedicated to underrepresented communities in construction trades. So we're going to have an activity with her to start out, which I'm going to help with, and we're going to facilitate, and then she's going to talk a little bit about herself. So please join me in welcoming Amber. Thanks so much for having us, for being with us today.
Hello, good morning, and happy Saturday, Mallory. How are you?
Happy Saturday. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. So super thrilled to be participating in this forum. When you guys asked me and told me who would be speaking to, I was just really excited to share what I do every day with, kids that are in school, students, because of course, I am looking to see the next builders and architects and engineers hopefully be inspired and maybe see a career path that they would like to take. So super excited to be here this Saturday. Thank you for inviting me to speak to the students today. So I'll start off by telling you who I am. I'm Amber Lawson. As Mallory said, I founded Aspire Construction and Real Estate Consulting a few years ago, and we have been doing just really great things that I'm excited about. One of the things that we do is design build. So clearly that fits into what we'll be talking about today and what this summit is all about. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about design build. So design build is a way of building a project that makes it a team effort. It's where everybody comes to the table and we collaborate. We're talking about architects, the engineers, and the builders. We all sit down at the very beginning of a project and figure out the best way to deliver what the client is looking for. The client could be looking for a restaurant. They could be looking to build a clothing boutique. It could be a Walmart. It could be an office building. It could be a house. There's just so many things that are in our environment that clearly somebody had to take some time to think about it, how to put it together, and then actually put all the resources together in order to make that happen. So when clients come to Aspire, they get the whole shebang from A to Z, architects, engineers, and builders. So I was saying all that to say, using that team approach, it's super important that we have a schedule. The schedule tells us what to do, what things need to be in place to make it happen. And when you're doing a construction project, things can get really complicated really fast. That's why it's important to have a schedule. So the activity that we're going to do this morning is a scheduling activity. So before we jump into that, I want to just talk you through what goes into a schedule so that when we get to the activity, you'll have a better idea of what we're going to be doing. So what is design build? Design build project delivery, or that is how we make a project happen, how we bring it to real life, how we bring it to reality. It's when all of the designers, and when I say all of the designers, I'm talking about the architects, the structural engineers, the mechanical engineers, the electrical engineers, the mechanical engineers, the civil engineers, and the builder or the general contractor come together and sit down at the same table. As you can see, I went through a list of about 5 different engineers, and in addition to the architect and the builder. And that's really what it truly takes to design a building and make sure that it's designed correctly. It's going to stand the test of time. Um, and one of the reasons that we like to do a team approach when we do design build is it saves money by encouraging collaboration. Of course, two heads are better than one, and seven heads working on the same problem are always better than one. That way, we can identify things that may cause issues to the project. We can talk about it. We can work through solutions. We can sit down together around a table and just get it figured out so that it does not impact the project, whether the impact would be quality or the impact would be money or whether the impact would be the schedule, making it take longer than we would like it to take. And with that being said, one of the other huge things that's a big benefit of doing a design build project as a team is we save time. So with the time, we sit down and we're able to work things out well ahead of time. So those are the things that are benefits to doing a design build. It's a team approach. We collaborate with each other, the architects, the engineers, the builders. We save money and we save time. And of course, the client loves those results. So I will tell you that I truly believe that the most important part of the puzzle of any project, and we can be talking about a project to build a house, we could be talking about a project at school, right? The first thing you have to do is you have to have a plan. And when you are doing a construction project, that plan is called the schedule. It's where we figure out how are we going to do it? What sequence are the events going to go in? Are we going to put the roof on first, or are we going to build the foundation first? Are we going to put in the bathroom and then put in the kitchen, or vice versa? And how we do things in the order in which we do them affects the quality of the building that we're able to build. It affects the timing, how long it takes, and it also affects the bottom line. It affects the finances of the project. So it is extremely important that we figure out the order or the logical sequencing that we're going to use to construct a building. So not only does the schedule tell you how we're going to do it, it tells us when it needs to get done. So if we're telling a client that we're going to have your house completed by the end of April, well, we need to know how long each activity to build that house is going to take and when we have to have it done by so that we can have it done by the end of April. So the schedule tells us how and it tells us when. But the schedule also has additional pieces of information. It tells us who is going to do it. So we've got the order in which we're going to do our construction activities. We know when we need to get it done, but now we have to know who's going to do it. So one of the things that would be on a schedule is the design. We have to know exactly what we're building, right? So those architects and engineers have to come to the table and give us a set of construction drawings. And we need those construction drawings ahead of time so that we can study them and figure out if everything makes sense and make sure we understand exactly the vision that the designer had when they started drawing a picture on a piece of paper to tell us what the building is going to look like. So the designer clearly designs the construction documents. The who also includes the contractor. The contractor needs to know, hey, the documents are done. There's an activity on here, and now the roof needs to be put onto the house. So who is going to do that? Clearly, that's going to be the roofer. Um, in addition to that, the client also has items that they have to do on the schedule. Everybody has a responsibility on the schedule. And many times the client has to come out to our job site and take a look and make sure that what was on paper and what we're actually building is what they wanted. And so there's very key points in the schedule where the client has to come out. We're like, hey, we need you to come out here, take a look at this. Is this what you were envisioning? Is this what you were thinking? And so that's the who, right? The who is going to be, like we said, the designer, the subcontractors that do the work, like the plumbers, the electricians, the carpenters, and then also the client. Um, and then we have to figure out what do we need to get it done. So we know how, the order in which we're going to do it. We've established the when. At what point do these things need to happen? And then we figured out who is going to do each one of those individual tasks. Now we've got to figure out what exactly do we need to get that particular activity done. For example, if we're going to install the plumbing in a new house, what do we need to get that done? Clearly, we need the plumber, right? um, what materials do we need? The materials would be piping, the materials would be sinks, faucets, shower heads, um, toilets, bathtubs, all of the things that go into making a bathroom or making a kitchen. So we have to make sure that we've got those materials in place at the right time so that that activity can can happen, right? So as you can see, the schedule contains an enormous amount of information and it lets everybody know what's happening and what they need to do to make sure that we have a successful project. We've got a how, we've got a when, we've got a who, and we've got a what. So that's what a schedule is. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you guys and really show you the thought process and the management portion of a construction project that sometimes people just don't think about or they just may not be aware. From the client's perspective, a schedule is going to tell them two things, which are super important. How long is it going to take? And how much will it cost? Clearly, that's what most people want to know. From the other side of the spectrum, the schedule tells the design builder what order to put the work in, the sequencing, the logic, the resource needs, which is what do we need to have in place? Material, labor, subcontractors. And again, how long will it take? Because again, we're talking about a schedule. So if you look on your screens, you'll see what a schedule looks like. Along the top of the screen, where you see W1, W2, W3, that is week one, week two, week three, and so on. And then if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see some words, and those are the schedule activities. So this schedule shows schedule activities. The first one is plans and contracts. So this is where the designers, the architects, and the engineers, this is where the bulk of their work comes into play in producing the construction plans. So clearly that's the very first thing that you have to do. And then you'll see directly under that, site work and masonry. That's where we prepare a site. We may need to remove trees. We may need to pour a foundation. Masonry refers to bricks or concrete. The next scheduling activity is framing. Framing is when we are building the walls. If you've ever walked by a house that's under construction and you see 2x4s or wood, that is the framing of the house. Next is plumbing and electrical. That's where we install the pipes, run the wires, so that when you plug something into the wall, your cell phone will charge and your stove will cook food and all of those good things. So that's a super important scheduling activity. And then it goes on. But so this is what a schedule looks like. You can see that from week 1 all the way through week 10, we know exactly what we're doing in a particular week, so that we know in week 1 with plans and contracts, we know that the designers have got to be working hard to make sure that everything is in place for week 1. Are all the plans complete? And if they're not, then that's going to delay every activity that comes after that. And that's one of the huge reasons that we use schedules in construction. We use it to help us monitor the work and make sure that we're staying on task, staying on schedule. And if we're not, we've got to figure out ways to um, get back on track. So here is where we come to the interactive part. Now, hopefully Mallory will assist me with this portion. We're going to talk through the activities that are on the screen.
Okay.
And that way, I just want to make sure that all the students understand everything that's on here. And then we're going to take some time to put these in the logical order that they would need to be done in order to build a house. So I'm going to run through it starting at the upper left of your screen. It says windows and doors. So, a house requires windows and doors if we want to stay warm and keep the rain out. Very important scheduling activity. Next is framing. I talked about that a little bit. That's where we build the walls, and it's typically for houses, they're made out of wood and 2x4s and lumber. We've got plumbing. I feel like that's pretty clear. We have electrical. Like we said, that's running the wires in the walls and installing plugs and light switches. We have the bathroom, installing the bathroom. We've got paint, because we definitely want our houses to look pretty. And we have pouring the foundation. A foundation is at the very bottom of a house. Typically, it's made out of concrete, and it makes sure that the house doesn't blow away. And I'm sure Mallory knows a lot more about foundations than I do. The other activities on the right side of your screen are the kitchen. Kitchens are great in houses because we do like to be able to cook dinner and eat dinner inside the house. We have the roof, which is on your upper right of your screen. And then on the bottom right, we have clear the lot. So clearing the lot is, imagine if you just had an open field and, we need the ground to be even before we could start even building. So we clear out all the trees, we make the ground level. So I've talked you through all the scheduling activities. So I would like to take a moment and do the logical sequencing of these events so we can really think about the order in which these events need to go. And also, what things or resources do we need to make sure that the construction activity is a success? So I'm going to have to do a little bit like this so I can move this stuff around and you guys can see it. So I can move these around. So if in the chat, you guys will first start off by taking a look, take a moment, and figure out what is the very first activity that we would need to do to build a house.
Oh, I see one in the chat. We have clear the lot and we have framing.
Okay.
Another clear the lot, clear the lot. We got a lot of clear the lots. I think we have a winner in clear the lot.
Okay. All right. All right. So I will agree with you guys that clearing the lot is the very first thing that we've got to get done. 100% agree with you. So we've got clear the lot. We've taken the trees off. We've made the ground level. So now we're on to number 2. What's the next thing we've got to do to get this house built?
We'll give everybody a second to answer. We have a poor foundation, poor foundation, poor foundation. Got lots of poor foundations.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. So I'm going to move that in place. And I'm going to pause this right there for a second, right? So we cleared the lot and now we're pouring the foundation. So what resources do we need to have in place to pour a foundation? So let's first start off with what materials do we need to have on site to have a foundation for the house?
Concrete. Susan says concrete. And Amat says concrete and rebar.
Yes. Oh, somebody knows a few things. Absolutely. We need concrete for sure. And we definitely need rebar. Mallory, can you think of any other materials that we would need for pouring a foundation?
Somebody else answered mixing truck. You might need equipment to do so.
Yes, absolutely. So that's just the materials, right? And we just named 4 things. We named equipment, a mixing truck, concrete, rebar. And for those that don't know, rebar is our metal rods that we insert in concrete to, I don't want to get too technical, but it gives the concrete strength. Okay. So that's just 4 material and equipment we need. Who are the people that we need in place to make this activity a success?
Jane says foundation engineers. Contractor.
Yes. Awesome. Right. So, yes. So Mallory would have provided us a plan for the foundation. She would have told us how big, how wide, how tall, how much rebar, what type of concrete to use. There's so many things that go into that. And, if Mallory felt like it, she might come out and check on me and make sure that I've got everything that she wrote in her drawings in place, the type of concrete and all of that. So those are the people and the materials that need to be in place for that activity to be a success. All right, we've cleared the lots, we poured the foundation. What's next?
All right, we have framing. Amat says framing. AJ says framing.
Sounds good to me.
Jane, framing. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. We've got framing. So now that we're doing framing, I kind of told you a little bit about what goes into framing. So again, what materials do we need to have to frame a house?
Raya says wood, nails, beams. Gabe says wood planks, lumber, timber.
Absolutely. Those are all really great answers. So those are the materials we need in place. Who are the people we need in place to make it a success?
Carpenters. Amat says carpenters.
Exactly. You guys are on fire this morning.
Yeah, chat's doing good. You guys are doing great. Everybody wants it's because I've got the logo, the Legos in the background. Everybody wants a chance at their
I think Legos. So. I think I'm going to talk to you after this and see about these Lego sets because they are looking pretty awesome back there.
They're very cool.
All right, guys. So we've cleared the lot, we've poured a foundation, we framed up walls. What's next?
Ooh, this is a tricky one. Let's see, what's next, guys?
Well, I'll give you a hint. It's definitely not the kitchen.
Do So we have plumbing, electrical, roof. We got lots of answers.
Okay. So I will
Windows
tell
and
you
doors. Yeah, we're across the board here.
Okay. So here's the thing, guys. Every schedule is a little different, and sometimes there's not a right answer. So out of all the answers you guys gave, it could be electrical, it could be plumbing, and it could be the roof. It could be any one of those. I'm sorry, yeah, it could be the roof. So, but typically, we're definitely going to want to put a roof on it so that whatever we're putting on the inside does not get wet. So
Amber, what would be the reason that you wouldn't put the roof on first? Like, what would be the reason that you might do electrical or plumbing? What things, I guess, would impact this or influence the schedule in that way?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons that we might want to put plumbing in first, and not that we would want to do that, but for instance, let's say the material that we're going to use to build the roof is not on site. So we don't want to stop work. We want to keep working because we want to make sure that we deliver the project on time. So one of the things that we can install that's not going to be affected by the weather is the plumbing. Plumbing gets wet anyway, right? So we can install piping, and that way we can keep the schedule moving. So really, piping and the roof could be interchangeable. But for general purposes, we definitely would want to do the roof first so that any work that we do on the inside can be protected from the weather. All right, we got the roof going. I kind of gave away what was next, but so we've got our roof on. So we've got walls all the way around our house. We've got the roof on. What do we got next? What's next, guys?
What would be after the roof? We have windows and doors and plumbing. Darnell says plumbing. Gabe says plumbing. Amant says plumbing and electricity.
Sounds good to me. It sounds like plumbing was a clear winner. Absolutely. We can definitely do that. So we've got our plumbing in. So now we've got 5 more activities. I'm sure we can just blow right through these, guys. You guys are on fire. It's Saturday. Your brain cells are firing. I know we can get right on through this. So after we've got the plumbing in, what might be the next activity?
Jane says electrical.
Mm-hmm.
Lorinda, electrical. Amant, electrical.
Sounds good. Sounds good. That is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do the electrical. So now the electrical's in, we've got 4 more things to do. But before we schedule the next 4 things, let's think about what we need to have in place for the electrical activity to be successful. What materials do we need? What is it that it would take to install electricity in a house? What materials would we need?
Jane says conduit.
Yes. Do we have some professionals in on this?
I think we do have a couple professionals.
But yes, conduit, which is the that's how we run the wires through the wall.
Darnell says wires. Mm-hmm.
Yes, 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 yes.
All right, John, no cheating out there. No cheating out there.
So listen, guys, what gets
Oh, she is a student. Jane's just a real smart student.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so we need conduit, we need wiring. Yeah, and clearly there's a specialized person that installs electrical. And I think it's pretty clear that person is an electrician, right? So that's the person that's on site that's installing the electrical. So now we've got a few things left. It could go either way. This is where it gets maybe a little tricky. So think about it. What are we going to do next after our plumbing and electrical are in?
Jane says windows and doors. Gabe, windows and doors. AJ, windows and doors.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. So windows and doors. Now our house is watertight, weather tight, all of that good stuff. Windows and doors are in. What is our next activity?
Amant says bathroom. Jane's bathroom. AJ bathroom. Kitchen bathroom.
Okay. So now I'm gonna flip the script on you guys a little bit.
Oh, uh-oh.
Okay. You can do things at the same time. You don't have to always do things one at a time and wait for one thing to finish before you start the next thing. So this was a little tricky. The next thing we're going to do is the bathroom and the kitchen, but we're going to do them at the same time. I'm trying to marry these two guys together. But so we can do the kitchen and the bathroom at the same time. So now what I want you guys to think about is, first of all, who is installing the kitchen and the bathroom? What materials do we need to have on site to install a bathroom, to install a kitchen? Let's start with the kitchen. Give me I can just think of 5 things off the top of my head that we're going to need to have to put a kitchen in.
Jane says fittings and fixtures. Amant says a plumber, carpenters, cabinet. They just said cabinets.
Mm-hmm.
Appliances, your sink.
Great answers, guys. Keep them coming.
Light fixtures. Flooring. Yes. Lorinda says flooring.
Yes, absolutely.
Vents, lots of things.
Yeah, so just take a moment to think about that. We're putting flooring in, we're putting cabinets in, we're putting appliances in, we're putting plumbing fixtures in. So we're talking about at least 3 trades that are going to be there putting in the kitchens and the bathrooms. We're talking about plumbers, electricians, carpenters. We're talking about a lot of materials that have to be in place. We're talking about sinks, fixtures, appliances, cabinets, countertops, ovens, stoves, microwaves, dishwashers, all of those things so that we can install a complete kitchen and bathroom. And I will tell you guys, the last activity is always, always, always the very last activity on a construction project. The very last thing we always do is paint. Can anybody think of a reason why paint is always the last thing we do on a construction project? And that could be in a restaurant, an office building, a house. Really kind of put your mind to it. Why would paint be the very, very last thing we would ever want to do on a construction project? Oh, did I forget to mention that I have this beautiful, beautiful t-shirt for, you know, the most answeriest students on our virtual summit. It is actually a project t-shirt for one of the projects that Aspire has completed. So not that I'm trying to bribe you guys for answers, but let's really put our minds to it. What things happen with paint? You know, you put paint on the walls. You know.
Darnell says easily damaged. Candace says paint can get damaged.
Let me tell you, that's exactly it.
You don't want to have to paint again if something scuffs up the wall. Things must be in place and approved before painting. Clients could change their minds.
Yes, clients do like to do that. Right.
Paint is a finish.
Yes.
Everything needs to be stable. Yeah, I think we got some good answers.
Yes. Excellent. Now, I want to know, was it the t-shirt that was the motivation?
I think it was definitely the t-shirt. It was pretty quiet until you hold up that really cool t-shirt.
Okay, I'm going to allow Mallory to, pick the students she feels deserves this beautiful, big little tiny house t-shirt.
Awesome.
Amber, this is Garfield. Since we have so much activity, I will buy an extra T-shirt for an extra student. How about that?
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So I hope that you guys take away from this activity some knowledge, some things you didn't know, some things to think about. And, that's just a small part of what I do as a construction manager. So that is the end of our scheduling activity.
We do have a question, Amber, from Lorinda. Why wouldn't the plans include putting the roof on and then the windows and doors to protect the house?
Okay, run that back one more time.
Why wouldn't you put windows and doors right after the roof so you can protect the whole house? Like, why would you do plumbing and electrical?
Again, remember, sometimes there's not a right answer. But I will tell you this, a lot of times we don't put in the windows and doors, particularly before plumbing, because plumbing, there's a lot of long pipes, right? And if you've ever seen anybody carrying around maybe like a 10-foot pipe, and if they turn around, I have seen so many windows get busted out from people carrying materials into the house and not paying attention. So you can put the windows and doors in, but if you do, you have to protect them and cover them because it's almost a guarantee that somebody's going to break one by accident. So
good. There are so many things that you just don't ever think about, all the things that have to be done. And I know you went through very broad, but think of all, just even the little, everybody, think about those little tiny bits of things that, the lumber has to be on site and the doors have to be on site and the door hardware. I mean, there's just so many things. So thank you so much for going through that scheduling activity. And I know you're about to talk a little bit more about Aspire. And there's been a couple more questions in the chat.
I apologize. I forgot about the questions. Yes. What questions?
No, that's okay. I was gonna say, we're just to keep us on track for time. If you want to go through a little bit about Aspire, and then we'll save some of the questions to the end. That way we can kind of.
We'll be fine. I can adjust.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You had another question about fast track method. If you could talk a little bit about fast tracking.
Oh, sure. Right. So for everybody that doesn't know, fast tracking is when you are evaluating a schedule and you are really trying to figure out how can we get this done sooner, faster. Sooner, faster means a contracted schedule, a compressed schedule. We get done the project quicker than what we thought. Sometimes it could be a money saver, sometimes not. So that's really figuring out what activities can be done together in a safe way, of course, right? So if we can do more than one activity, construction activity at a time, that can help us fast track the schedule. But when you're fast tracking or figuring out how to accelerate a schedule, it is so important that we always think about safety. When you are moving things a little faster, you have to put additional precautions in place because there's more people on site, and we have to make sure that everyone works safely. Construction can be very dangerous at times. So that's one of the big considerations if you're fast tracking a schedule.
Awesome. And then we have a student with their hand raised. Welcome.
So my question was just like, what inspired you to do contracting?
I have a very un-PC answer for that.
That's okay.
It's a Saturday.
What I do all day? I tell men what to do all day. And I'm bossy. And I picked the very perfect career where that is just the trait you want to have to get things done.
Love that.
That's awesome. I love that. Great question.
Oh, we got awesome answer. Do you guys have any other questions before we move on to the next segment?
What type of training do you need to be successful?
Oh, for sure.
From Lorinda.
So I'm going to tell you, in our field, there's going to be two things. And I think that this is true for architects, engineers, and contractors. You need a solid educational foundation. So that is going to be post-high school education. I personally have a bachelor's degree in construction management. I know most engineers, they're going to require a college degree. And then architects, the same thing. But there's two components to that, right? You're going to need that solid educational foundation, but in conjunction with that, you've got to get experience, because what you learn in school, while you need that foundation, in the field, in real life, it just doesn't compare. It really, or not that it doesn't compare, but they really go hand in hand, and you really need both of those to be a successful architect, engineer, or construction manager.
Awesome. And then we have another hand raised. So Amant, Kelly's gonna let you come on, and if you want to talk or get on video and ask Amber your question.
Hi. So Amber, I have a bachelor in architecture, and also I'm in my last semester for construction management degree. Yeah, master's. What advice would you give me for my future career?
Have you done any internships while you're in school?
I have not got a chance to do any internship. I was solely focused on school.
Sure, that's fine. There's different paths to get to success. To really pair your dual major of architecture and construction, get out there in the field. Get out there in the field and really see things put in place as they happen, the order in which they happen, the people that need to be in place, what it's really like, so that all of the education that you've gotten, you'll really be able to really see it in action. And when you do that, it'll make you a better designer and a better construction manager.
And I know even if they're not internship opportunities available, there's also oftentimes volunteer opportunities available. So I'm sure, Amber, you can talk a little bit about what's Aspire for Hire, but even, if you guys are familiar with like Habitat for Humanity, I think you might have to be 16, I can't remember if it's 16 or 18 to participate, but they always need lots of volunteers. And it's such a great way to see exactly how things come together, just like what Amber talked about, exactly with the schedule. So.
That sounds good. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, Jane, I see your question. Let me tell you, I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm still learning. I know the key to being successful in this field is to realize that you will never know everything, right? Everybody that you come into contact with can really teach you something, give you a gem, show you something you didn't know, a different way to do it, a different way to look at it. There's new materials that are coming out every day. So what was done 40 years ago and how to design and build a building is totally different now, just because of the advances in technology, right? And so it's just a continual learning process. And I would say what has made me successful is that in-depth experience working, right? I have worked on Apple Campus 2. Somebody asked in the chat box, what was the highlight of my career? Apple Campus 2 was Apple's new headquarters in Cupertino, California. Biggest office building in the world. It's a big circle. You can see it from space. And a building like that had never been designed before, and it had never been built before. So that was one of the highlights of my career. And I got to tell you, I just learned so much on that project that Again, it's a continual learning process. And as long as you maintain that open mind and make sure that your learning is continual, that is really the key to success in this field. You know, I have had mentors all through my career, right? Some of the mentors look like me, some of them didn't, but I will tell you this. And also, some of them worked at the jobs that I worked at, and some of them didn't. One of the key turning points in my career that really made me think, hey, I can do this, is I was an office manager for a general contractor that was a woman. That is what truly opened my eyes to, hey, this is something that I could do. And literally from that point on, that's what changed the trajectory of my career. Because when I first started college, I was a marketing major.
Some representation obviously is a huge component of what we're trying to do with ACCI and why we're bringing speakers like you and everybody else today. It's just like we want to make sure that students see people that look like them, right? Even if it's different. I mean, we want to make sure that you guys know. It's funny that you say that, because I too, that's exactly how when I started my firm, I saw somebody else. It wasn't in structural engineering, but it was in the industry, and I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. So definitely great to have that representation.
What's the best way to ask somebody to be a mentor? Okay, so I have a philosophy about this. When you ask someone for something, you should offer something in return. It shows them that you appreciate their time and their expertise. So let's say, hopefully you guys are on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an excellent resource for professional networking and finding mentors. So let's say you reached out to someone who you admire and you wanted to ask them to mentor you. So, hey, shoot them an article that's in their field and say, hey, I saw this article and I thought you might be interested in it. I would love to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. And that's how you can start a relationship. And so when I say that when you offer something in value, it doesn't have to be something that costs money. It is, hey, I'm showing interest in what you do. I appreciate your expertise. And hey, I want to share this information or knowledge with you that you may not have seen. And I think that's really the best way to approach somebody. So guys, hold on to your questions for a second. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. So the focus of today, Saturday, is community impact, right? And community, when you first think about it, let's just talk like really briefly. What is community, right? Mallory talked about it a little bit during the intro to our session. Community is the people. Community is the place that surrounds you, right? It is the built environment. It's a tangible thing that you can touch. It's an intangible thing, right? The people, the energy. Have you ever been to a place and you can just feel the energy? Some people might experience that walking into, a huge cathedral, or if you've ever been to the Empire State Building, going to the top of that building, or even if you've ever just been to a park that is well designed and being around trees, right? So that is community, right? The tangible and intangible things that surround us. And the topic of this Saturday is community impact, and specifically architectural engineering and construction impact on the community. Literally, there's nowhere you can go, nowhere you can look that an architect, engineer, and a builder has not touched. Maybe if you go out into the middle of the redwoods forest in California, maybe the middle of the Amazon. But other than that, literally every place in the world, there is something that an architect, an engineer, or a builder has touched, and it is affecting the community, right? So I cannot stress the importance of what we do. You know, we can, as designers and builders, we can literally change the world. We can and change the world for the people in our community. So that's just one of the reasons I was just so happy to kind of come on and talk about this and really emphasize the impact that our profession has on the community. One of the things that Aspire does, Aspire Construction Real Estate Consulting, we have a nonprofit, right? And it's called Aspire for Hire. And it is about ascending and it's about helping people to get to their next level. And our particular focus is giving educational experiences to underrepresented students in building and construction, right? So I want to play a little short video because we've worked on a project and here's some of the students talking. It's me talking first and then some of the students talking about their experience in working on a project. And I think you guys will really find that enlightening.
Amber Lawson, principal of Aspire Construction and Real Estate Consulting. I'm standing here in my backyard because I'll be building a tiny house back here. I'm standing right here in the footprint of the foundation. I want to change the face of who designs, constructs, and uses a tiny house. I want to show the community what's possible. By showing the community what's possible, we can show that tiny houses can be used to increase the resiliency of the family by having grandma or auntie living in the backyard. You can create a passive income for the homeowner. This in turn leads to a family being able to afford to stay in a gentrifying neighborhood. Changing the face of who designs, constructs, and uses tiny homes.
Louis Jackson, experience on the tiny house was really inspirational and motivational because we got a chance to actually put our classroom activities into action. So everything that we learned, we actually got a practical application for it. And I look forward to doing this again if the opportunity presents itself.
It's always good to volunteer in something. But volunteering on the house gives me more experience for when I'm ready to step out there in the workforce. You know, I have something, you know, under my belt that that would help speed up the process of getting hired. Yeah, it's fun overall. The experience itself, that's the fun. And
Wonderful.
being a woman, being able to overdo these men out here.
I know that's right, girl.
I believe it's everybody's responsibility to give something back. And I have a lifetime of experience in construction. I just want to share that with my students, share that with the community.
So I've enjoyed it so much, and being able to be on an actual work site is so much different than being in a classroom or doing a model house. This is something that's actually going to stand and stay there. So it's kind of cool to be able to be like, yeah, I know I'm a girl, but you know, I built that. And just kind of defying expectations on what people think.
So this experience is one of a kind. I pray that more students get a chance to come out and experience this type because it gives a different feeling when you're actually working on something that's going to be utilized. You know, it's a difference when we're working on a model at school versus now we're working on an actual project that someone is going to utilize and live in. So I give thanks to Aspire for making this bridge with Atlanta Technical College. And I hope that I am not the last, but I give thanks that I was one of the first to pioneer with this tiny house experience.
That looked like a lot of fun, Amber.
It was. It really, really was. Yeah, it was a good time. It was definitely a good time. And you guys, that is the t-shirts that everybody won, the people that were chosen. That is the project that is being commemorated on that shirt. It's the Big Little Tiny House. And we call it that because it is a tiny house, but it's a little bit bigger than most tiny homes. So I'm glad I was able to share that video with you guys. So
I have a question for you, Amber. Can you just share a little bit about what exactly a tiny house is, maybe for those who might not know?
Absolutely, absolutely. So a tiny house is The standard definition is anything that's under 700 square feet. So to kind of give you a sense on how big that is, think about a 1-bedroom apartment. That's typically the size of a 700 square feet. The tiny house that I'm building is 412 square feet, so even smaller, right? So that's what defines a tiny house from a regular house, is really the square footage. And then once you get into tiny homes, you've got tiny homes, some that are stationary, that sit on a foundation. And there are some tiny homes that people mount on wheels and they just haul it behind their truck and their home is wherever they go. So tiny homes are pretty versatile, depending on how you want to live your lifestyle.
Awesome, thanks. And I didn't know, do you have availability for more students to work with Aspire for Hire? Is that an option?
Yes, absolutely. So for that particular project, we actually just put the roof on last week. And now we're going to start with the plumbing and the electrical. And we have not installed the windows and doors because I don't want them to get busted out when we're installing the piping for the plumbing. So yeah, absolutely. The website is aspire4hire.com.
I have a question about how COVID affected Aspire for Hire, because I noticed that some people were wearing masks.
Yeah. So I was actually working on a project that started in February of last year. And, COVID kind of got started in March. And then it really just got crazy around the end of March and April. That's when things started shutting down and it just got crazy. So here's what happened. I was building a restaurant. For everybody that's here in Atlanta, you may be familiar with it. It's Slutty Vegan. And we were building the location on Edgewood Avenue. And so we're in the midst of this project. And for anyone that may or may not know, as we're going through a project, we have to get inspections from the city of Atlanta or whatever jurisdiction you're in to make sure that we're doing everything the right way. City of Atlanta building inspection shut down due to COVID. So that was the first impact. The second impact was the social distancing mandate. So, we talked a little bit about fast tracking a schedule. A lot of times that requires more than one activity to happen at a time. And we were fast tracking that schedule, but we had to stop. Because in order to have the social distancing that was mandated, we had to have less people on site, and that slowed down our schedule. So not only was our schedule slower, but we also were not able to get our inspections, and you've got to get inspections to move on to the next step. So that was a huge impact on a project that I was working on during the height of COVID-19. If you're looking for students for your program, would they have to already be enrolled in the technical program, or can high school students apply? Right now, the program is for post high school volunteering, but we are expanding the program. And when we have the capacity to engage students in high school, I will certainly reach out to ACCI and let them know so we can partner up on that and make sure the message gets out to you guys.
I know we had another question about scheduling software. What is the scheduling software that you typically use? I don't know if you use PowerPoint for your scheduling software as you showed us today.
No. If it were only so simple. Let me start off by saying, you guys, the schedule that we worked through that had 10 activities, a typical construction schedule is going to have hundreds of activities. So it gets pretty complicated really fast. So that was a great question about the software. So Aspire, we use Microsoft Project. It's a scheduling software that allows us to do logical sequencing of construction activities. It allows us to do resource loading, which is what has to be in place material-wise, equipment-wise, people-wise. to make sure an activity is successful. So that's what we use. And I'm also a little old school in that in addition to the overall schedule, we have something that's called a 3-week look ahead schedule. And that gets into the very fine details, and I use Excel for that. I'm sure there's probably some kind of software that would be better, but I'm old school, so I just use Excel. So
on the schedule side, I'm teaching at Kennesaw State construction management program, and actually scheduling advanced project management, which is, don't ask me why, but of course Primavera P6 is what we've also used for more I hate to say more complicated, at least for larger programs. Microsoft Projects is definitely the industry standard in the sense of you can really manipulate it a little easier, and it's cheaper. But also Primavera P, I just wanted to say Primavera P6, put the link in the chat, is another industry standard for even more complex schedules.
Yeah, absolutely. I've used P6 on larger projects, but sometimes you just need something simple.
Absolutely.
Know what's coming up. And I will tell you guys, Microsoft Project is pretty intuitive. You can play around with it and figure it out. I don't think that that's the case, or I don't feel like that's the case for P6. You need some training on that.
I would say you need some significant training. It's like Revit and all of that. It's a whole other level. But great discussion. Thanks.
This is Damon Green. I'm one of the board members with ACCI. I first want to thank you for coming on and facilitating an excellent activity. I want to comment on is the artwork in the background. Beautiful, beautiful piece.
Yeah. Okay. The artwork is Uzo Art, uzoart.com. And she has some beautiful, beautiful prints. And I love her work. The paint is Claire Paint, which is a Black-owned paint company.
Hi, Amber. This is Rich Dupree. I'm one of the board members as well. Thank you for such an excellent presentation. This was awesome. Can you talk a little bit about budget, how important budgets are when you're doing a project?
Oh, yeah. So, wow. I'm going to try to keep this concise, but clearly budgets will, one, make or break a project, and they really set the tone. We started off this segment talking about design build. One of the key benefits of design build, where designers and builders sit down at the very beginning and collaborate on the project, is it really allows a laser focus on budget, so that what comes out in design and what is going to be constructed, that budget conversation happens much sooner in the project lifetime than it would be in a standard construction or project delivery method. So those budgets and finance talks start way in advance on a design build project. And that's really why a lot of clients choose to do it this way, because from the very beginning, I, as the builder, I'm letting the designer and the client know, if you do it this way, this is how much it will cost. Perhaps if we do it this other way, it may cost a little less. And it really gives the opportunity for the client to make choices very early on in the project timeline so that they maintain the budget. The majority of the projects that we work on are commercial. And in commercial, whether it's a restaurant, a retail store, clothing store, business is all about the bottom line. And people are in business to be profitable. And so making sure that the finances and the budget for a project are on point from the very beginning is key to that entrepreneur being successful. The project being a success, and then that feeding into their success post-project as they utilize the space.
And one other thing, my last comment would be the term value engineering that we a lot of us know about in the industry, and what the pluses and minuses of that. If you could talk a little bit about value engineering.
Sure. So, value engineering, it's a term that people like to throw around, right? value engineering is, in essence, let's take a look at what exists or what has been designed, and let's see if there is a better, less expensive way to accomplish the same goal. So that's what value engineering is, right? In design build, we move that value engineering conversation to the very beginning. We're already talking through the best way to do something in the most cost-effective way. So while value engineering is good, I prefer that happens very early on in the design process.
Amber, we have just a little over 15 minutes left with you. I was going to ask you what has been, I know you talked about like a highlight of your career, but I was going to ask you what your most favorite project or maybe client has been.
I'll tell you one of the most fun projects I worked on was, so right now I'm currently working on a project at Underground Atlanta. For those that are not in the Atlanta area, Underground Atlanta is a historic landmark building that is right in downtown Atlanta. A big portion of the building is literally underground. It used to be a mall. And it sits at the junction of 5 points because Atlanta used to be a rail or a train depot, right? So that was like the main nexus point back when people used trains to get around. So anyway, we're working on a project there, and I'm just super excited about this project. One, because this is going to be the revitalization and re-energizing of a core piece of Atlanta's downtown. It is a historic touchstone for so many people in Atlanta. So many people have memories of Underground Atlanta, particularly people that attended college here, particularly through the 90s. And so this particular project is about 9,000 square feet, and it is going to, I don't even know how to describe it. You know, when my clients come to me, they come with these just awesome ideas. So this is their second location. They have one that's located in New York, and it is, I guess the best way to describe it is an international snack emporium. And so whatever snacks they eat in Abu Dhabi, Spain, Bahrain, Italy, Africa, you will be able to get them at this store, you know. And so when you come in, the experience is going to be phenomenal and through the roof. It's the plans that the designer has drawn up, and just the whole thought behind it is going to be pretty unique. So I'm really excited about that project.
We had a question about value engineering. Is it done at the end of a particular phase, or is it continual?
Well, you know, value engineering, like we said, you start asking those questions at the very beginning. Is this the best way to do this? Is this the best material to use? Is this the best design for this element of the building? We start that at the very beginning. Value engineering is a continual process. And you really need to be asking those questions of yourself and your team throughout the entire design and construction process. So I would like to get more questions from the students. Do you guys have any questions about being a woman in construction, being in construction, working with designers, doing this for 20 years? Whatever you want to ask, I'm here to answer it. So just go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can before we come to the end of our time. Because I definitely want you guys to really get as much out of this as you can. And okay, so I've got a question here from Lorinda. Hey, Lorinda, what are your future goals for your career? So I got to tell you guys, you know, I told you I started Aspire 4 years ago, and I have been having a ball running my own company. And for the future, I would really like to see Aspire expand into some larger landmark projects, where right now we're doing a lot of interior build outs, which is the building already exists and we're renovating the inside. I really would love to be able to drive by a building 2 or 3 years from now and be like, you know what? Aspire designed it and they built it. That's the future goals for Aspire. Okay, I have a question from Brianna. Hey, Brianna. And Mallory, if you could give me like the 2-minute warning when we get to that 2-minute mark.
Sure, will do.
What challenges do you face the most as a woman in construction? How would you say you overcame those obstacles? So Brianna, there's 2 ways to look at that. So before, when I was working for other people and other companies, right, is one experience. And when you are the owner of the company, it's a totally different experience, right? So I'll talk about how it is when you're working for another company. As a woman in construction. So as you guys know, construction is my main focus. I think the statistics are 92% of the construction industry is male. And so as a woman, when you come onto a job site, it can be a little intimidating. And what I had to do was really, before I get out of my car, I just give myself a pep talk. Listen, girl, you're here. You're about to do this. You don't know everything, but you're going to learn today. And there's some things that you can teach somebody else today. So I give myself a pep talk and go onto the job site. And that's really what I use to really kind of just get in there and start feeling comfortable. And of course, once you get to know people on a personal level, it becomes much easier to interact and be a part of the team. So that's just one of the things. And as a woman, a job site, depending on how big it is and the culture that's there, it can be a little bit rough for a woman. So it's really important that you set a standard and maintain that standard. And I'm talking about in how you speak to everybody on the job site, your professional demeanor. That's just super important. And when you set that tone, it sets the tone for them and how they talk to you and how they interact with you. Sometimes there's going to be some things that happen, but hopefully there are structures in place to help you deal with that. But I have found that setting the tone from the very beginning helps create the atmosphere that allows me to be able to thrive and be a part of the team. Okay. Okay. All right. So I have another question asking to speak specifically as difficulties as an African American female in the industry. So I will tell you guys that you really need to be, I would say, outgoing. In construction, you travel for the work. I have lived in Wisconsin, Augusta, Georgia, Cupertino, California, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Georgia. And when you are going, when I would go for a project, I might be living there for a year working on the project to get it built. And, you've really got to be really confident in what you bring to the table. And you really need to be outgoing because you have to make new friends on, every new city that you go to. But for me, that was thrilling. I wanted to live all over the country. I wanted to live in all different places. I didn't want to just visit those places. I wanted to live there and really experience what it was like to live on the West Coast. When I lived in Augusta, Georgia, I was working on a nuclear power plant. They were building Plant Vogtle nuclear reactors 3 and 4. And so I lived out there for a year and a half. So Augusta is like a tiny city, and our job site was 45 minutes from that tiny city. So that was a unique experience, and I'm glad I experienced it. Will I be going back to Waynesboro, Georgia? Probably not, but I know what it's like to live there now. So, okay. So I think I've hit all of the questions that I saw in the chat. Mallory, have I?
Yeah, I've got another question for you. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to promote other women in construction? I know you're on a couple boards, but is there any sort of other activities that you can talk about to help promoting, the current and next generation of builders?
Absolutely. So I believe that influence and effectiveness happens on a very personal level. So, as Mallory mentioned, I sit on the board of the National Association of Black Women in Construction. And also, I think you guys could see through the video that we played a little earlier of the women that were working on the job site. Just being able to see someone that looks like you or that you can identify with is really a key to you believing that you are able to do something or that something is even a possibility. And so I take a very personal approach to making sure that the spaces that I'm in and that I occupy, that I'm making it welcoming and that I am reaching back to open the door for other women that want to come behind me and really kind of taking them under my wing so that they've got a support system when they first step on that job site. They've got somebody they can call when there's a situation that has come up and they're not quite sure how to deal with that. And so that's just something that I do personally. The employees that work at Aspire are mostly women. We have some men, but they're mostly women. And, a lot of times they don't realize that we are the construction managers when we show up on site, but after a few minutes, they realize who the managers are and who's in charge and who's making sure the project is running smoothly. So I take it very personally. So just on a professional level, I make sure that the door remains open and that I'm doing everything I can in my direct network and in my direct access to make sure that door is open.
Awesome. Thank you. We have 5 minutes left. So if there's any other questions, please feel free to use the chat. If not, I don't know if you have any parting words of wisdom, Amber, that you'd like to share with all of our students today. That would be awesome.
Let me tell you guys, I love what I do. And if there is something that if there's one thing I can share with you today, it's going to be find your passion. I know people tell you that and it feels like, how are you supposed to do that? But I'm going to tell you, when you find it, literally every day is phenomenal. Every day you're like, what am I doing today? Where am I going? What am I doing? Who am I working with? And I'm going to tell you, the key to finding that passion is to get out there and do something. Volunteer, work somewhere. I was an office manager when I figured out I want to do construction. But you just got to get out there and do something. And even if it's just, okay, I'm crossing this off my list because I don't want to do that. I don't feel a spark. I don't feel a passion. I don't feel excited about that. That's a win because now you've crossed something off the list. But as you get out there and start doing and trying and experiencing, when you find that passion, when you find that spark, it will change your life because everything you do from that point on will have a reason. It will have a motivation. It will have a higher goal and a higher purpose to what you're trying to do. And so if there's anything that I can leave with you, is to find your passion.